Okay, back for part 2 of this 4th update video from November 14th, 2025. I left off right here. And these two signatures are new. Got these on the same day at Philadelphia WrestleCon in 2024. Muhammad Hassan and Nailz. Really cool, rare appearances for both of them. And Natalya was also in Philadelphia at WWE World. Oh, Ahmed Johnson. Philadelphia WrestleCon. Added him to the nation. So I've already got Farouk, Kama, D'Lo, Mark Henry, Savio Vega, and now Ahmed Johnson. I'll leave that spot for The Rock, if that would ever happen. And another Big E signature from WWE World in Philadelphia. And let's see, Leif Cassidy, that's new. That was from, actually I think both of those are new. Leif Cassidy was from Chillicothe last year in March. And I think that Marty Jannetty might have been in Philadelphia. I'm going to double check that. Check my cheat sheet. Yes, it was. So, yeah, Marty Jannetty. I'd met him before, but I didn't have him sign this page before. So, added that signature at Philadelphia WrestleCon last year. Nothing new on the Nexus. Still plenty guys to have signed that page. The Nexus, I mean. Nunzio, that was in Chillicothe last year. That's the show that Bobby Fulton runs. I just picked up this Lars Anderson, Minnesota Wrecking Crew. He was at the Gathering this year. Just a couple of months ago in August. I think there's several new signatures here. So Finn Balor is this one. That was WWE World. Philadelphia last year. Let's see, Elias, Walk with Elias, that was Philadelphia WrestleCon. The Iconics were already there. That's Aleister Black, he was already there. Added Jordynne Grace at WrestleCade last year. She wasn't technically signed by WWE at that time, but we knew she would be very, very soon. That's Sasha Banks, that was already there. Matt Riddle, that's new, that was at Chillicothe last year. Dana Brooke is new, that's from Philadelphia WrestleCon. Ember Moon was already there, and that's Joe Hendry. That was at WrestleCade last year. Paul Burchill is new. He was at Chillicothe last year. Same place where I got Jacques Rougeau, Matt Riddle, Alberto Del Rio, a couple of more Al Snow autographs. Perry Saturn was from Philadelphia WrestleCon last year. Nice rare meet and greet with him. Still waiting on Paul Roma. I've been waiting on that for years, just because I grew up watching him in the 80s, and you know, he makes sporadic appearances here and there, but it's never at a place where I'm at the same time. And I also know that Jim Powers came out recently and they did an appearance together. I'd love to catch one of those. Okay, another Jamie Noble from Madison, West Virginia last year at All-Star Wrestling. That was it's Gary Dameron's company in Madison. PJ Walker, or Just Incredible, one of his gimmicks. This was from the Philadelphia WrestleCon last year. And those aren't new. Another Jacques Rougeau autograph from Chillicothe last year. He signed 3 different spots. And another Perry Saturn. So that's Dean Malenko's name on top, and that's Perry Saturn there. So Dean Malenko's already there, and then Perry Saturn, that was from Philadelphia WrestleCon last year. Ranjan Singh, he was at WrestleCade last year with Great Khali. And here's the other Jack Swagger signature. We the People. This was, he came to Catlettsburg, Kentucky for Time Warp, Ashland, back in May of 23. And Renee Young, she was at the WrestleCon in Indianapolis this year for the Royal Rumble. Got that one. Still waiting for Rick Martel to make an appearance somewhere. As many of us are waiting. Okay, here's another Bull Buchanan signature when he was at the Gathering last year in 24. Added that one. And also Rob Conway was at the Gathering this year. Got 2 signatures from him for there and La Resistance. Got R-Truth at the Royal Rumble meet and greets in Indianapolis this year. And picked up this Rusev at Philadelphia WrestleCon last year. Got lots of great signatures in Philadelphia last year. That was a good weekend. This one was also Philadelphia WrestleCon. And Sami Zayn was at the Royal Rumble meet and greets in Indianapolis this year. Hoping to add Samoa Joe one day. Serena, that was in Philadelphia at the WrestleCon last year. Sharmell, she showed up at the Philadelphia WrestleCon with Booker T. Booker T had been announced as a guest, and I knew that they usually traveled together. When I asked Michael, that runs High Spots and WrestleCon, I asked him if Sharmell was supposed to come with him, and he had said no. He didn't believe so, but I thought, well, I think she may anyway, and I was right. She did show up, so got that at Philadelphia. That was nice. So Solomon Crowe or Sami Callihan. This was at Philadelphia WrestleCon. I asked him if he would sign under both signatures, both gimmicks, since more people would know him as Sami Callihan. And then here's that Spirit Squad. Dolph Ziggler signed as Nikki when he was at GalaxyCon in Columbus, Ohio in December of 23. Steve Blackman, another rare one I picked up at Philadelphia WrestleCon. Really nice guy. Nice to talk to. There's another Serena from Philadelphia WrestleCon last year. The rest of these have already been there. And Tajiri from Philadelphia WrestleCon. Tatsumi Fujinami, he was at Gathering this year. Very, very cool, rare Japanese guest. And Ted Arcidi was also at the Gathering this year. I was very, very happy to meet him. As I said earlier, I always enjoy meeting the guys from the 80s that I grew up watching, and I always liked him being one of the biggest and strongest guys from the 80s. So I was glad to finally get to meet him. And Tennessee Lee, or Colonel Rob Parker, at the Gathering last year. I asked him if he would sign both of those signatures as well. Tony Mamaluke, that was at Philadelphia WrestleCon. And Recon, which is Bull Buchanan, he was at the Gathering last year. It's one of the 3 pages I had him sign. Tyler Breeze was in Indianapolis at the Royal Rumble. He wasn't signing autographs, but I saw him passing through the meet and greet room and asked if he would sign, and he graciously did. Anything new? No. Vito, that's new. He was at the Gathering last year. And Waylon Mercy was at the Gathering last year for Dan Spivey. He signed both of those pages. Okay, got a few new signatures on the NWO page. Let me just go through. So these aren't new. Sting, Ted DiBiase, Razor Ramon, which should have said Scott Hall. Let's see, Lex Luger, there's Buff, Scott Steiner, The Disciple. Okay, right there. That's Masahiro Chono. He was at the Gathering last year. Very cool that he could be there. That's Scott Norton. There's Bischoff. There's Vincent. Or Virgil. Giant. And then Hollywood Hogan. Got that at WWE World last year. But I'd been holding that empty spot there for him for a while. I'm so glad to get to add him before he left us this year. See, that's Great Muta, that's Kevin Nash, that's Conan, that's X-Pac or Six, and then right here, that is Dennis Rodman. Just kind of not a whole lot of space to cram that in there, but Yeah, so there's the D, and then there's the R. So yeah, Dennis Rodman, he was at WrestleCade last year. And the rest of these aren't new. Van Hammer was at the Gathering this year. And Evan Courageous, that was the Gathering. I forget if that was this year or last year. Check my notes. It was last year. Okay, so yeah, he was last year and Van Hammer was this year. Alright, getting near the end. So I had met Shelton Benjamin once before where he signed his page, but I didn't have him sign this one until last year. No, maybe this was 2 years ago. Let me check my cheat sheet. Yeah, July of 24. July of 24, this was at the Time Warp Ashland store in Ashland, Kentucky. Alright, Kevin Von Erich. He was a big guest at the Gathering last year. Really cool to get to talk to him. Almost to the end. Okay, added 2 referees. First, Charles Robinson. This was at the Gathering last year in Charlotte. He was not a guest, but he lives near Charlotte, and he just showed up that day. They had several former referees as guests that day, such as Dangerous Danny Davis, Tommy Young, and I think Earl Hebner was there too. And Charles Robinson showed up and was just hanging out with those guys, and I just walked up and said, "Hey, you care to sign my book for me?" And we said, "Well, sure." He's super cool, super nice. And Mike Chioda was at WrestleCade last year. He was cool too. Don't want to leave him out. And I think... Okay, one more Just Incredible right here. So that was at the Philadelphia WrestleCon. And I believe that is it. Yep. That is it. Thank you guys for watching. I hopefully will check back in with you after WrestleCade here in just a couple of weeks for a brief update. Alright, thank you guys again for watching. Hopefully you'll hear from me soon.